Meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. Merci nous inviter ici aujourd'hui. Introduce Mr. Beasley and Mr. Roglam, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Thank you for coming to our International Human Rights Committee, the Subcommittee of Foreign Affairs. A little bit about the World Food Program. In Canada, it's the largest humanitarian assistance partner, and in 2019, Canada contributed almost $200 million to the World Food Program, making it its seventh largest partner. Also, to introduce Mr. Beasley, he was appointed Executive Director to the World Food Program in March 2017, first elected to public office at the age of 21 as a member of South Carolina House Representative. Mr. Beasley served as governor of the state of South California from 1995 to 1999. Without further ado, Mr. Beasley, if you wanted to present to the committee, you're more than free.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. It's great to be back, and I wish I had some good news to give you. But just when we thought it was about as bad as it could get out there with war and conflict, destabilization all over the world, and particularly in the Middle East and in the Sahel region, Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, the Horn of Africa, Yemen, then comes the desert locust. And then we thought that was bad enough. And then all of a sudden, boom and bam, we got the coronavirus. So it's not a good situation. I think 2020 is very well going to go down as one of the worst humanitarian years since World War II. I don't see how it's not going to be that case. So if you don't mind, maybe let's overview. First and foremost is thank you, because the people of Canada have been extremely supportive of the World Food Program. The taxpayers of your nation clearly understand the role that the World Food Program plays in stabilizing countries around the world and what that means to their national security interests and to the interests of just being good citizens in a global world today. And so very much thank you from the bottom of our heart. Fundraising has been, in a lot of ways, difficult for a lot of agencies. We've been very successful in the last few years. When I took this role, as I'd mentioned, I think when I was here over a year ago, the United States was the greatest concern that the United States actually would be cutting back its funding. In fact, quite to the contrary, where it seems like Republicans and Democrats in Washington are just fighting over everything, they have come together on food security and working with us. I've had long-term relationships with key senators on both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, as well as in the House. And so the funding from the United States, which is extremely important, went from $1.9 billion to $3.4 billion for the year 2019. And so the United States sent messages through me to allies, Canada, to the Europeans. We're not backing down, so please continue to step up, because I think the White House, both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue, see and understand the same thing that you as leaders in Canada see, that food security is a building block, fundamental building block for the stability, security of any nation and region in the world. And that's why I now state today that with the $8.4 billion we had in 2019, what we were able to do in saving lives of reaching about 90 million people. In the last 3 years, the number of people that are hungry has spiked for the first time in decades, from 777 million to about 815, give or take, million people. The question you would ask is why? And the answer is actually very simple: man-made conflict. That's the number one driving force. The second driving force is climate shocks, extremes, climate change. You can debate what causes the climate change, but what you cannot debate is what we see on the ground. And it's not a matter of, like when we were in Niger or Mali and places like that, those people are trying to survive. from the droughts and the flash floods. And so we can't just sit back and debate what is causing it. We've got to be on the ground, rehabilitating land, working alongside them, trying to bring them peace and security. And what's very sad is extremist groups like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Boko Haram, they try to exploit these very fragile environments. So hunger rate's been going back up. The severe hunger rate, meaning those that are on the brink of starvation, has spiked from 80 to about 115 million people in the world in the last few years. And what's really has been great news, when you think about historically, 200 years ago, 95% of the people on earth were in poverty. 85% were in extreme poverty. And we had just turned the corner in such a magnificent way. And that was when the world was at 1.1 billion. And now with 7.5 billion people, we had reduced the poverty rate, the extreme poverty rate, below 10%. So we've developed and designed and implemented programs and systems around the world that's sharing wealth better than any other time period, arguably in the history of mankind. But for the last 3 years, we're now going in the wrong direction. And so man-made conflict, climate extremes, destabilized governments. And so when you look at these very difficult scenarios and now compounded with what we're facing with the coronavirus, not many people realize that the World Food Program, we're the logistics hub for the United Nations. We're also the sort of the containment mechanism on pandemics like Ebola. But coronavirus is going to be a different game, totally different game. And we're concerned, obviously, like everybody, about the coronavirus. But then we get into more complex issues like supply chain. Let me give you an example, what we were seeing in China. It was one thing to have the coronavirus impact a particular area, but all of a sudden the supply chain started breaking down. Chicken feed couldn't get into the chicken farmers. Pig feed wasn't getting to the pig farmers, and et cetera, which compounded an already desperate situation. So in Africa, as we see the coronavirus moving in that direction, already fragile system, it could be devastating. But what could be probably more devastating is the economic downturn upon economies around the world. For example, Lebanon, your home country, is in desperate economic condition. That compounds the problem in Syria. Syria has been at war for 9 years. I was in Syria in the Idlib area just a few days ago, and it was about as bad as you can possibly imagine. 9 years of war, children having no future, a generation of children completely without schools. We now have 780,000 children in schools in Syria because of our programs, thanks to the support of the Canadian people. Now, what was already a bad situation, most people have been focused on Idlib in the last couple of months. That's bad, but there's still the rest of Syria with a desperate situation. Compounding that was the economic downturn in Lebanon, which is truly a desperate situation because the Syrian economy is dynamically tied to the Lebanese economy and the banking system. Syrians that did have any money at all had it in the Lebanese banks. Now they can't get their money out, so it's compounded the problem inside Syria. Yemen, we're feeding about 13 million people on any given day out of the 29 million people. That's the problem in itself. Sudan, I would have never believed I would have said this 2 years ago, is the brightest hope in all of Africa right now. But the window will close if we don't act substantively, comprehensively, and quickly. You have a leader there with a team that truly wants to move the nation forward, but to stabilize it and to prevent the extremist groups from exploiting what is a desperately declined economy, time is of the essence. The Sahel region is deteriorating as we speak. Thousands of schools are closing. Thousands of civilians are being killed as a result of the extremist groups. Many of them came out of the Syrian war, moved into the Sahel region, and are partnering with ISIS, with Al-Qaeda and Boko Haram in ways that we've not quite seen before. They're more aggressive, exploiting a very fragile part of the world anyway, and compound that with climate extremes as the Sahara continues to push down. And now it's knocking on the door of Western African countries such as Togo, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire. And so when you think about all this in the Sahel region, and then you think about Libya's destabilized, which is the portal for sex trafficking, slave trade, weapons trafficking, migration by necessity to go through Libya into Europe. And so we are the containment mechanism. Quite frankly, what we do know, people don't want to move home. They don't want to leave home. They've lived there all their lives and decades. When you feed 90 million people on any given day, you know what's going on in the neighborhood. So if I fed every one of your family and your neighborhood for 2 years, I know what's going on in your neighborhood. It's just the reality of the World Food Program. We see things, we watch things, people tell us things. People don't want to leave home. In Syria, we can feed a Syrian about 50 cents per day, which is almost double the normal rate, but it's a war zone, so logistics are a little more expensive. But that Syrian, if we're in Berlin or Brussels, the humanitarian support's 50 to 100 euros per day. And the Syrian doesn't want to be in Berlin, quite frankly. Nothing against Berlin. They want to be home. And I haven't found a mother or father yet, no matter where I've gone, and I go to probably more countries than about anybody on earth per year, and I haven't met a family yet that wanted to leave home. And they don't want outside support, but they're trying to survive. In many cases, we are the first line of offense and defense against extremism, because if a mother or father can't feed their child and their only hope is an extremist group, they'll do probably what any of us would do to keep their child alive. And so the Canadian support of the World Food Program is a powerful weapon for peace. We use food as a weapon of peace, while others try to use it as a weapon of recruitment or weapon of war. And so we will continue to put our lives on the line. That's one of the things I love about the humanitarian aid workers. They put their lives on the line every single day because they know what's at stake, and they have the heart for people regardless of their sex, regardless of their religion, regardless of their culture. It's all about humanity, we as people around the world. So, Mr. Chairman, I will answer any questions about any particular programs that we are involved with, whether it's gender equality or school meals programs or countries in conflict, to the degree that I know what's going on. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley, for that testament of yours, and we'll move on to Mr. Sweet for 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. And Mr. Beasley, thank you very much for being here, but more importantly, thank you very much for the critical work that you do and the amount of people whose lives that you and your organization are saving on a daily basis. I can't say enough about the good work that the food program does. Some years ago, a district attorney partnered with an organization called the International Justice Mission, and they wrote a book called The Locust Effect, and you just described pretty much what the book was about, that you can pour all kinds of money into aid, but if you have organizations like Al-Shabaab and ISIS and Al-Qaeda that are robbing people every day after you feed them, that creates a real problem. Is there a growing sensitivity, or how should I say, a growing consciousness amongst all of the networks of leaders, whether it's NATO, NORAD, or whether it's G8, G20, that security needs to be linked with aid more and more?
David, yes. In fact, what is quite remarkable, a year ago, the United Nations Security Council was able for the first time to pass a resolution very clearly stating that food security is critical to the security of any nation. You wouldn't have had that years ago. In fact, the Russians and the Chinese on the Security Council, which sort of like Republicans and Democrats don't seem to get along on anything, they came together on this particular matter. And so when I began talking 2.5 years ago, you know, when you see trends and you're watching people movement, you sort of see where it's going. You're in politics. You monitor people. You're listening. And so 2.5 years ago, when I began expressing my grave concerns about what was taking place in the early stages in the Sahel region, a lot of people were like, no, that can't be happening. And now everybody's truly woken up to realize the reality on the ground. Without food security, you really will have no other security at all. It is a fundamental building block for any society. And of course, the beneficiaries, they don't care whether it's a humanitarian dollar or a development dollar. They're just trying to survive. What we try to do is take even a humanitarian dollar in a non-short-term context, because the old paradigm was short-term humanitarian disasters, a cyclone, an earthquake, volcano, whatever it might be. You are in, you're out. But today is protracted conflict, like in the Sahel, like Syria, like many other places of such. And so we try to take a humanitarian dollar and leverage that dollar to build community, give them some hope. And so a lot of the things, like, for example, last year, our beneficiaries, and the women are the most amazing. I mean, they are absolutely amazing. With some of the men in some of these places, if you give food or money to the men, sometimes you don't know what's going to happen to it. But when you give it to the women, they get it to the children. But what we're doing more so is that our program now is that we want an exit strategy in every country. How do we achieve our goals and objectives? So when we can go in saying, all right, what can we do to help you as a family no longer need outside support? And so food for asset programs, school meals programs, homegrown school meals. Historically, we would just bring in commodities. Today, out of our $8.4 billion, $2.1 billion is cash-based transfers. So we put liquidity into the marketplace, giving it to mothers who then put that cash into the community, helping stimulate the economy, buying from local smallholder farmers, homegrown school meals. So instead of bringing in the commodities from the outside, we'll meet with the local school teachers, the local moms, and the local smallholder farmers. We will buy from the local smallholder farmers, and then the children eat home-cooked meals, and we help them with the nutritious diets that they need, because some of them have a cultural way of eating that's not quite so healthy, like you would see in Guatemala. They've got calories, but they've got the wrong calories. But in the context like in the Sahel region, what we're doing is rehabilitating land. And I have seen mother after mother stand on a hill with so much pride and said, I remember this one particular woman said, Mr. Beasley, before we had no hope, but we designed these half moons, and they dig a half moon is what you would think, a half a moon. And it's about 30 feet in diameter, and the trench about this deep, about this wide. And in an area like the Sahel, you might get this much water a year, but with flash flood or drought. And so when the flash flood hits, the water now gets caught in these little trenches, and you ought to see the pictures in 1 year. Well, it stabilizes the area. And this one mother said, no longer do I need help from the World Food Program. Now I own 5 acres of land. I'm now going to buy 5 more acres of land, and now I'm no longer needing not just your help, but I'm feeding my family, I'm feeding my village, and I'm now selling into the marketplace. That's what we want, even in the most troubled, difficult areas of the world. So last year, our beneficiaries rehabilitated about 500,000 acres of land. We want to scale that up. Literally built over 15,000 kilometers of roads, feeder roads to get products in and out, these types of things, water canals, holding ponds, thousands upon thousands of holding ponds, water reservoirs, so that they don't have to depend upon us. And it is a wonderful thing to see that take place. But if we're not there in these building blocks, and this is one of the things that we ask the ministries around the world from the different governments, because it was always a development silo and humanitarian silos. And so we're asking the governments to be more flexible and fluid with these funds so we can achieve objectives, leverage that dollar to do more with it in each particular situation.
30 seconds. Okay. Tell us quickly, how did the U.S. went from 1.9 to 3.4? That's a 75% increase. How did you make the case for more aid money?
Well, I've had a long history of relationships at the White House as well as in the Senate and the House, having been a United States governor, served with many of them. And many of them are my Republican and my Democrat friends. And so one of the things that when Trump got elected, everybody was mortified that he was going to zero out international aid. And I told my friends that, because a lot of my friends were working at the White House, I said, I know if I can sit down and give the president the reality of what this means, because I knew at the time you had Mattis and so many other leaders at that time. It wasn't Pompeo, he was later, but they were all very supportive of the World Food Program. In fact, Mattis had said, if you want to buy more bullets, then cut the World Food Program, cut international aid. And so with the support, and you have to go back to not 19, but back to the election year, you had a real strong movement of the Tea Party and conservatives. So I immediately went to them and sat down and said, let me show you what we're doing, because I had to get talked into taking this job myself. That was not an easy decision, because my first impression was, I'm not going to work for the United Nations. I thought inefficient, ineffective, incompetent.
We have to move on to the next speaker.
And so here I am, the biggest advocate now in the world for the World Food Program, because liberals and conservatives come together when it comes to food security.
Excellent.
Lay aside the differences.
And with that, I'll move on to Mr. Fonseca for 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Beasley, for being with us here today, for your experiences, for sharing those with us. I know you're a very busy person, but your testimony is very important here to us today. I want to take back I'm new to this committee, but back when you were last here, I believe it was December of 2018, you'd stated that, in your words, the two areas that concerned you were the lack of digitization in the UN system and gender parity. So just how do you think those have changed now? What steps have been taken? Where are we? Can you give us some insight?
Yeah, I can. In fact, digitization, we've now digitized 50 some odd million people. Biometrics on about 18 million. We're the world's largest operation in this sphere in the humanitarian world, and our ability to use now blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, satellite imagery is quite remarkable, and how we use it in so many different contexts is quite remarkable, from smallholder farmers that are now using cell phones to get access to market so they're not bound to one particular buyer, in addition to what to plant, when to plant, whatever it might be, is quite remarkable. And mothers especially, because in many of the areas that we're in, women have been oppressed for a long, long time. And when we come in and we're doing, particularly with cash-based transfers, we now do 2.1 billion of cash-based transfers. And so half of those, at least, are women controlling the money. And what happens? Domestic violence starts going down, and the empowering of women in communities is absolutely remarkable. At the World Food Program, in terms of gender numbers, since I've arrived, we've actually hired an additional 1,278 women. Our numbers have gone from 30% to 35% on national hires. And you can imagine when you're in places like Yemen, Afghanistan, it's just not so easy to find the numbers because women haven't been out there in the workforce. And so now we're building an incredible team from the top and the bottom. My leadership group was 1 out of 5 women, and now it's 3 out of 6. My regional bureau directors was 1 out of 6, and now it's, with the new numbers we're putting in, 3 out of 6. But then we've hired the 1,278 women. It's probably more in the last 48 hours, but anyway, remarkable progress. School meals programs is one of the most powerful weapons for gender equality, particularly in areas where girls don't get an opportunity for schools, and we will not implement a school meals program without that equality. And we know that if the girls around the world get the same education as boys, it's a $30 trillion economic impact on the global economy. Food for Asset programs. We've now got over 10 million women involved in these programs. 10 million that are empowering with smallholder farmers. Opportunities are remarkable. It's really, truly quite exciting. I can go on, but
I just want to say congratulations on those achievements. And in the light of COVID-19 that we're going through right now, how will that data, that digitalization, how will that help you on the ground?
When it comes to like Ebola, we're the containment mechanism, and we work with WHO. Containment here is going to be much more difficult. I don't know how you're going to contain it. And what we're concerned about, as I was saying earlier, is the supply chain. It remains to be seen. Our teams are working just on this literally right now in a country-by-country context of how do we use our technologies, our availability, our strengths. We'll see. But one of the things that has impacted us, and this is, I was doing interview yesterday with I forgot the national. What's it, national? Anyway, and he was asking how was, because our headquarters is in Rome. I mean, and so anyway, touching everybody from no. We left 2 weeks ago, and I don't want to say we saw it coming, but I've been tested twice, by the way, since then. You could be relaxed. But it's created an extreme problem for us because you can't shut down the World Food Program. We're here for emergency operations. We are keeping people alive all over the world. So our team's using technology and data, digital streaming, video conferencing. We actually headquarters of about 1,900 people. We've got 1,600 working from home this week, and we're trying to see how that's working because Rome really is shut down. If you want to go visit Rome and see everything without crowds, it's just a time to go if you can get there. But it is a complex problem. And so when you start dealing with supply chain, and it's one thing if our people can't go do conferences, that's okay. That's not a big deal. But we've got to move supplies. We've got to move programs and policies along because people will die if we don't. We can't just say, oh, the coronavirus is here. We got to take a break. And this is why I've not slowed down. And so I've been very keen to find the doors of opportunity to come here, for example, because I'm afraid with the economic downturn that may happen from the coronavirus, it's going to impact not just Canadians, but it's going to impact extremely so the already poverty-stricken places of the world who are going to need our continued help. And so this is why I'm continuing to go out, hit the drums, and sound the horns that we need help. Don't forget about people that are starving to death. 25,000 people die every day from starvation. Every single day. So I'm concerned about the coronavirus, but I'm also continue to be concerned about the 25,000 people that should not be dying, but for the fact that we don't have the money and the access to reach them.
Just 15 seconds remaining.
I just want to thank you very much again for those achievables. It does look like the digitization, the work that you've been able to do, is going to at least help in terms of stemming some of the what's going to happen with the fallout with COVID-19. So that puts you in a good place.
Thank you.
A lot of work to do.
And
thank you, Mr.
Let me add one comment, if you don't mind,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman. Some of the new technologies that we're using in software are allowing us to acquire. We've now got a system that's so unbelievable in terms of identifying products and around locations that we otherwise couldn't have access to. It's saving us money, it's saving us time, and it's allowing us to move supplies at a much quicker pace.
Merci. Monsieur le maire, vous avez 7 minutes.
Merci, M. le Président. Merci d'avoir pris le temps de le dire en français. J'apprécie particulièrement. M. Beasley, merci beaucoup de votre présence. C'est très touchant. Je reconnais votre contribution et toute la démarche qui est intéressante dans votre cheminement personnel. Je retiens une des phrases que vous...
You're very well-traveled. Thank you very much for being here, and I thank you for your contribution. Peace... humanitarian aid is a weapon of peace. I really appreciated that concept. Education also is stressed throughout these programs, school meals. I believe in these concepts and these practices very much. My first question, are you satisfied with Canada's contribution, or do you feel that Canada could be doing more?
Called C is probably the most impactful documentary I know in probably North America. But there's a guy named Scott Pelley, who's the commentator. Scott was doing an interview with me. It was about a 30-minute program just on Yemen. And Scott, I'd known Scott, and at the end of the interview, Scott, we were taking down the mics, and Scott said, right from the heart, he says, Governor, and that's how you know me as the United States governor. He says, "You've got the greatest job on earth, saving people's lives." And I said, "Scott, I do. I really do. It's absolutely remarkable. But I'm going to say something to you that's going to bother you, that you haven't thought of." And he looked at me in bewilderment, like, what could that be? And I said, "Scott, I don't go to bed at night thinking about the children we saved. I go to bed at night weeping over the children we couldn't save because of lack of money or lack of access." And when you think there's $300 trillion worth of wealth on earth today, and that a single child goes to bed hungry, much less dies, every 5 seconds a child dies from hunger, it's unacceptable. And I said, when we don't have enough money, guess who has to decide who eats and who doesn't eat? Who lives and who dies? I said, "How would you like that job, Scott?" And he looked at me and said, "Oh my God, I never thought about that." I said, "Oh, we don't have a choice. We have to think about it and decide upon who eats and doesn't eat every day." So there's never. I don't want to say there's never enough money. We do need more money, and we're so appreciative of what Canada has done. But as to the world's plight today, all nations need to step up more. If you don't, I think it's going to compound, and it'll cost you 100 to 1,000 times more. And so thank you for what you're doing. We've got more to do. And let me say this, and it's not just about doing more. It's also about doing more strategically and effectively. I do think international organizations and foreign aid has learned a lot in the last 10, 20, 30 years, programs that aren't effective. We need to be, I think, whether you're from the left or from the right, I think we all have an obligation to evaluate which programs, given that we have limited dollars, are the most strategic, where should be they most effectively placed. And so we would love to see more money. We're appreciative of what we get, and let me leave it at that.
Bien,
As to the distribution, no problem. At the level of distribution, what kind of control or supervision or monitoring goes on? Because we often hear of hijackings and misappropriation of some of these goods and commodities as are going through. How can you ensure that the targeted beneficiaries are going to be the targeted beneficiaries?
Like in Yemen is a classic case example of a catastrophe in terms of monitoring assessment. In places where we have the authority and the independence and the neutrality to operate, we can pretty much guarantee all of our food and assistance goes to the right people. It's one of the reasons we use digitization today and biometrics, so we can assure taxpayers that their money is going to the intended beneficiaries. That's why monitoring and assessments are so important, which is why Yemen is such a disaster. The Houthis have been a disaster to work with. The food diversion, not giving us the access we need for monitoring and assessments. This is one of the reasons we're pushing biometrics hard in Yemen right now. We're at I don't want to say a standstill, but the next few weeks are going to be critical as we negotiate this impasse, because why do you think they don't want us to have access? Why do you think they don't want us to have the assessment? Why do you think they don't want us to have the monitoring? Because they're diverting food aid for a war effort or the underground economy. And it's just deplorable what's taking place there. We know we feed about 12.8 million people there out of the 29 million people. And it's all commodities. But we've been moving in cash into the government-controlled areas in the South using biometrics and digitization. But if we can get it into the Houthi-controlled areas, because the other 16 million people are buying in the commercial market, which is very difficult, and they have very limited money, and commodity prices have been going up. But if we can bring in cash and know that the cash is getting to the hands of the beneficiaries, put liquidity into the market, then the commodity pricing for those who we don't support will come down, which means we can benefit all the people. But some of these Houthis and hardliners in Ansarallah, they don't care one single bit about their people. There are some Houthis, though, leaders that do. We are in a fight right now with regards to this issue. In fact, the United States is talking about suspending food aid until, not just food aid, but all aid into Yemen until the Houthis agree to the basic fundamental humanitarian principles. And quite frankly, if we can't push them forward to do the right things, then you could argue we're aiding and abetting in these violations of the most fundamental humanitarian principles.
30
and so
seconds
last
remaining.
September, when I did a suspension in the Houthi-controlled areas, it was, and it took about a week or two, and they came around. But it was tough. And it's a hard decision to make. And, it is. It's hard.
And with that, we're going to turn it over to Ms. McPherson.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Beasley. This has been lovely to listen to you. My career, I'm just a newly elected parliamentarian, and my career prior to this was in humanitarian assistance and international development. So, of course, lots of this is very much resonating with me. One of the things I would most like to hear from you, I guess, is, and I will encourage you to be blunt. I'm from the opposition, so I'm allowed to be blunt. I'm quite enjoying the fact that I now can be partisan in my efforts. I couldn't as a international development person. But could you talk a little bit about what you need from Canada, what the World Food Program needs from Canada right now, and perhaps if you wouldn't mind touching on, not just the dollar number, not just that, but the funding mechanisms, the length of the contracts you'd like, the funding mechanisms that we use, the leadership you'd like to see in terms of how we are, what that looks like in terms of the coronavirus and other challenges that we're facing, and even maybe tie it in a little bit with some of the things that my colleague Mr. Sweet brought up in terms of security and how that support, in fact, will assist with security in different regions. If you
Thank you. One of the things that helps us in long-term planning is multi-year flexible funding. If it's short-term funding, it's hard. You can imagine whether you're running any kind of program anywhere, if you only know you got money for a year, you think, well, how do you have long-term planning with that? How do you develop the programs and the people you need, the systems in place? So more long-term flexible funding. And Canada's been a great advocate in the UN system globally in this regard. We break down the silos, whether school funding, school meals for children, nutrition programs, general food distribution programs. We can always use a little bit more money in each of these categories. But Canada being a voice is a very important voice to be heard because they are one of our top donors, and I think Canada has a tremendous respect around the world. And probably the third thing is, and it's probably more important than anything, if the powers to be, everybody seems to be distracted. If you turned on the news in the last 2 years, what was it? Brexit, 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 Trump, 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 Trump. Well, only in the last couple of weeks is it now Corona, Corona, Corona. Still Trump, Trump, Trump. But people don't know what's going on around the world, how bad the calamities and the catastrophes and what we're talking about in the places that I've mentioned. And I do believe that people in Canada, just like the people in America, care. But the leaders in the free world have gotten so distracted with so many things. I want to say, everybody slow down a little bit. Let's bring the leaders of power to come together. Let's solve South Sudan. Let's solve Yemen. Let's solve Syria. If we can just solve 2 or 3 of those, I believe we can end hunger by 2030. I really, really do. But it seems like we're all piecemeal approach. And let me say this, and this is one of the things that I've been kind of hard on our friends, including the United States and the donors, is that you take a country, and this would be the geographical location. Well, the United States will come in and do a little bit of program here. Germany will come in and do a little bit of program there. And UK will do a little bit of a program here. And Canada will do some, and all good stuff. But I think we've got to come together more strategically and comprehensively. And I've been pushing that nations need to come together and think it through, a more comprehensive approach. Some of these nations probably need a more Marshall Plan approach, quite frankly, because I've been in some of these countries, and And I don't want to say who, but I had one of my friends in one of the agencies said, "Oh, proudly, I was coming to the country. We've been here 30 years," and I was like, "You proud of that?" You know, in certain contexts, you do need to be in places 30, 40 years. But sometimes, like in a humanitarian dynamic, in a development dynamic, if you're still there after 30 years, you might ought to back up and say, maybe we ought to be doing something a little bit differently, you know, that kind of thing. Because our goal is to put ourselves out of business. We're no longer needed. And so these are fundamental questions that need to be asked. But I see one of the greatest problems, like in the Sahel region and some of the sub-Saharan African countries, is the lack of scalability and scaling up. And I can go show you anecdotal evidence when we come in, let's just say, for example, in Niger, where we've come in with food for asset, rehabilitating the land, and complement that with a school meals program. Holy mackerel. Migration by necessity drops off the chart. Marriage rate by 12-year-olds drops off the chart. Teen pregnancy drops off the chart. Recruitment by ISIS drops off the chart. Conflict between the herders and the farmers drops off the chart. You can quantify each one of those economically, and when you do that, you start to see, wow, it's a lot cheaper to come in with a comprehensive program than it is not to address the root cause. And I say the analogy, I'm an old country boy, and I'll say it's like being at an old home, and you got 4 or 5 water lines in the ceiling, and they're leaking. Well, one's leaking over there, and the carpet's now getting messed up, and the furniture's ruining, the chair's ruining. And sometimes our political leaders are all fighting over where to put the buckets. And I'm like, we need to get up there and fix the leaks. We need to fix the root cause. It's a lot cheaper to address root cause. And this is where I call upon our allies, our friends, because Canada does a fantastic job. And when I meet with the leaders here, they really listen. And I think everybody's trying to adjust to a new era of conflict and destabilization and protracted dynamics with what we're facing with new climate extremes that are just quite unprecedented, as well as protracted conflict with ISIS and Al-Qaeda and these extremist groups and non-state rebel forces that you see in country from country. And so anyway.
Sorry. 30 seconds? Well, yeah, no, I guess I would just finish by saying thank you very much. And certainly you alluded to the 2030 agenda and the SDGs. And so that's something that I certainly hope that we can get there.
Yeah,
we can work together on. But I will be pushing to get a little bit more money out the door. So.
Well, we appreciate that more than you know. And I think it's a very delicate time right now. I'm very worried about the next 6 months.
And with that, we'll move on to Madame Vandenbelt for 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. It's good to see you once again. Thank you for your previous appearance before the committee. And I, too, actually, before politics, did a lot of work with UNDP and UN Women. And I think what you're saying about the costs up front versus how much it costs at the end by not investing here is absolutely accurate. I'd like to focus in on what you said about the second largest cause of food insecurity, which you said was climate change. And to what extent can governments like Canada put in place and help countries with mitigation, with adaptation, with the kind of measures that are going to be needed? Because I think I saw a statistic that said that climate change could push as many as 3 billion people into hunger just because of that. So what is it that we could be doing to help mitigate that?
Yeah, we're actually looking at several 100 million people displaced over the next 30 years. And I've got those specific numbers in terms of our analysis of with the climate extremes that are continuing to take place on a much more routine basis than they were before. And one of the things I've explained to some of my friends who have a question about the climate changing, I said, look, they said, well, but the average temperature and the average rainfall didn't change in that country. I said, the average rainfall didn't change. The average temperature didn't change. But let me show you by season. By season, it did change. The average rainfall was quite different that season, and the average drought was quite different that season. But it still, in certain countries, averaged out the same. Now, in other countries, it doesn't average out. And so one of the things that we push with donor countries is several things. One, whether it's a humanitarian dollar or a development dollar, give us the flexibility to come in and rehabilitate land to help people survive. So last year, beneficiaries rehabilitated over 500,000 acres of land. And that means they can survive. I mean, it's really that simple. So give us the tools and the flexibility to not just provide cash, not just to provide a commodity, but also allow the people with that same dollar, leverage that dollar so they can become more food secure, more resilient, more sustainable. The other thing, and this is a decision particularly going to be difficult in the next year or two, is that there's not enough money for everything right now. And I think you're going to have to prioritize. And quite frankly, I'm not saying this because I'm at the World Food Program, but food security is a fundamental to every family and nation on earth. Development dollars. We don't get a lot of development dollars, and no one impacts development on food security more so than we do. And so we've got to get the development dollars more, because we are in my opinion, we can scale up. And I say development, we're not building buildings and things like that. We're talking about water systems, irrigation system, holding ponds, reservoirs, these types of simple building blocks, but they stabilize communities where water is an issue. Now, let me give you an example of something we just did in Afghanistan. So in the Mazar al-Sharif area, we would historically just bring in commodities. Well, okay, great. We were keeping people alive, but we could do that for 50 years. So we went to the other side. We asked our donor, give us flexibility, give us the cash. And so we went and met with the farmers in the stable area of Afghanistan, said, we will buy from you. But we need this quality, this quantity. Well, guess what happened? They hired more workers, bought more trucks, more equipment. Then the milling operations, they needed to buy more equipment, buy more trucks, hire more people. Same dollar. Then we bought it from them, took that commodity over to Mazar al-Sharif, where they have droughts and floodings from the mountains in the valley. And if they have a good crop, it gets wiped out by the flood or the drought. So we met with the leaders, said, we will provide this food to you with these conditions. Let's rehabilitate the mountainside. And so we began re-landscaping the mountain edge of the foothills, and water was diverted into holding ponds and reservoirs with diversionary canals and small dams. So the water was diverted such that when a flash flood came, it didn't wipe out the crops in the valley. And when there was a drought, guess what? We had irrigation lines coming from the holding ponds, and I had this tribal leader stand there, proudly say, our children are no longer leaving, our children are no longer joining the Taliban or the anti-government rebel forces. They proudly are showing their friends from other tribal areas what it means to be in a beautiful land again. It was a remarkable success story, and we're no longer needed there. Or we can now move on and do something else. And so this is what we want to do more of, because it really dramatically, dynamically changes the fate of an area.
Thank you. I think
You have 2 more minutes.
I have 2 more minutes. Okay, good. I'd actually then like to go into something that you just started talking about in terms of gender, and when you give money to the women, they reinvest that into the community and into the children. And you used the term leveraging each dollar. How is it that when women are part of, not just recipients, but also part of the design and the development and implementation of programs, how does that then impact?
That's extremely important. In the United Nations, when I arrived at the United Nations, I remember one of the first meetings the first week. It was one of these drawn-out, long meetings in my first experience, and I actually walked out after about 6 hours and told the Secretary General, I said, "You have to fire me. I'm not sitting through any more of that kind of stuff again. Just talk. Well, anyway, forgive me for saying that. But one of the points at the end of the meeting was on gender equality and hiring more women, and was blown away. And of course, I was new, and they were like, "Is this a Trump guy? Is he going to be? What's he going to say? Where's his views on women? You know, all this kind of stuff, and perceptions and stuff." And I was just listening, and finally, I said, because I've been quiet all day because I was new at the table, and I said, I can't believe you're talking about this. And the women didn't know what to think. What's he going to say next, right? I'm like, how long have you been talking about this? 20 years? Why don't you just do it? It's not that complicated. Hire more women. You know, then the women were like, oh, he's on our side, you know. And so the point is, in the UN and in corporate world, they focused on hiring just one or two women at the top, and have totally failed to understand the impact when you're hiring women all throughout the organization. For a variety of reasons. Most important reason, as to your question, is when women are in the designing of systems, women have a different perspective. And it allows men and women then to come up with better solutions because women see things that men just don't. In the World Food Program, we're more productive, we're more effective when women are in that decision-making process.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Unfortunately, we have to go to Mr. Janice.
What do you mean, unfortunately, we have to go to Mr. Janice? What is...
That was a great topic, but...
Point of order. Governor, it's great to have you here with us today. I appreciate your comments. I want to ask two specific questions that jump off things you said. The first is, can you dig in a little bit further on the situation in Sudan? Amazing political transformation happening, great source of potential hope, but obviously a lot of challenges ahead. What's your perception of what's happening there on the ground, the next steps for the future? And it seems that a lot of this political change has happened with very little Western engagement. What can we do to be more supportive of the forces of change and democracy there?
I've been in Sudan and South Sudan at least 3 times in the last couple of months. And it is a very delicate situation, but it's a remarkable opportunity. Hamdok, whom I literally WhatsApp several times per week, working with him, working with the leadership, helping them work through a maze of issues that have compounded the future because of the past. The state-sponsored terrorism list, in my opinion, that's got to be resolved quickly, immediately. There's a lot of people around the world, especially in Washington, that wanted to think that this new government is nothing but the old government in new clothing. And I can tell you, quite frankly, it's the farthest thing from reality. Hamdok is truly committed to the future. I've been meeting with Hemeti and Burhan on many occasions, had very frank, hard conversations with the doors shut and everybody out, and literally, getting down to it, the past, the present, and the future. And the government there has given us access and support in every location we did not have before. And so we've been bringing people together. We brought Abdulaziz, the leader of the SPLMA down in the south, and Hamdok together. We used our WFP equipment and helicopters and brought them together. People said that just can't happen. And I have found when you don't negotiate through the press, but bring people heart to heart, it's just a great tradition when people will sit down heart to heart, face to face, and run out everybody, and it's amazing what happens. And so the progress has been remarkable, but the extremist groups are in wait. They're waiting for the magic moments to come in. And if the West, if international donors, and it'll be primarily the West, does not come in with safety net programs, we're there now in a substantive way, but you've got fuel subsidies, bread subsidies, and when the IMF, first we got to get the state-sponsored terrorism list off. That needs to happen quickly, and I can spend a good bit of time talking about that because I've been spending a lot of time in Washington, meeting with the staffers, meeting with the senators, meeting at the White House, meeting at Pompeo, the State Department, going through these issues. And I think many of those who were more hesitant to think there was a brighter future are now coming to reality that this is a great opportunity. But the amount of finances that are going to be required is going to be significant because you've got fuel lines now. You'll see, I talked to Mohammed bin Zayed, head of UAE, about this last week. We talked for quite some time. I think you'll see the Gulf countries step up. One of the things I've been pushing is that Gulf countries must step up more, particularly in their part of the world, and not depend just on the Western dollar. There's too many problems for just the West alone. So, and I can keep going on this issue.
I wanted to squeeze in one more question that's on a different vein. The role of China in the world aid system. Concerns about strings attached, Belt and Road kind of aid being used as sort of a quasi-colonial project, espionage, all that. What is your engagement like with the Chinese government, Chinese-backed entities, and how do you see their influence in the aid space?
That's an interesting question, and let me be careful how I answer this thing. But China gives us a small amount of money, and we're making the case to them, if you want to be in the multilateral world, you need to step up more, and we're hopeful that they will. I think they've seen mistakes made in their past, and I think they're trying to move in the right direction. Let's see. But at the same time, what they did on food security in China over the past 40 years is absolutely remarkable story. How did they do it? Their drive to end food security issues. Now, they've got other issues like we all do, but China just made a major drive to put in place the new director at FAO. Now, FAO is a lot smaller than us, but they're the expertise operation. So China, all hands on deck to acquire this position. It's like if the United States or the West backs up at all this much in the UN, China fills it. Boom. They've been very strategic. And so this new Chinese leader takes over FAO, and everybody's like, oh, my gosh, it's WFP with a U.S., person there, FAO with a China person. And he and I have really worked hard to say we must take advantage of the relationships we have from both of our countries to try to do what we can to end hunger in countries. We all have a lot to learn from one another. We have a lot of opportunity, and let's don't blow this opportunity. Whether you like him being there or not is not my decision. That's above my pay grade, but it is my obligation to try to help him be effective. And let me give you a good example. He's a doer. I mean, this guy is a get-it-done kind of guy. We'll see what happens. But I was down in Zimbabwe, very concerned, meeting with the leadership in Zimbabwe. You go to the issues in Zimbabwe. And China had just committed 400 boreholes in Zimbabwe. Well, I heard about it, and I'm like, well, gosh, they need to put those boreholes where we are so we won't need to be there anymore. So I picked up the phone and called him, and I said, you know who to talk to in Beijing. How about get on the phone and tell them to sit down with us and let us overlay our operations because that's primarily U.S. dollars, and then China boreholes. So we were taking advantage of our relationships, and now we're coming together to try to overlap and strategically align boreholes where there's droughts and a need of these types of collaboration. There are a lot of issues. I think China's struggling with this. There's a new book that's just coming out soon, talks about China's past, and past meaning the last 50 years, the mistakes they made. It's written by a professor at Tsinghua University, where my daughter's at the master's program in Tsinghua. And so I'm hopeful that, and this is one of the things that I've said to a lot of my friends, because
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. If you can just wrap up in just maybe a couple seconds.
Well, we will do everything we can to help any nation, including China, move in the right direction to be a good player in a multilateral world. I think we all can improve and do better.
So, merci pour votre déclaration. Merci pour Monsieur Beasley and Monsieur.
Thank you very much for your statement and
the vast array of information that we got today. And as you mentioned, the severe hunger going from 80 million to 115 million. And you mentioned the reasons for that is because of the instability around the world, whether it's political instability, war, conflict. We're seeing a more need for the World Food Health Program. And we want to really thank you, you and your team, and for Mr. Roglum for all the work that you're doing. And we know when there's a crisis or a disaster that the World Food Program is there, and we know that we will take this back to our officials in Canada and make sure that we do what we can to in order to continuously contribute to the World Food Program. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And just 2 reminders for the committee. Just to submit your topics of study by 4 p.m. tomorrow, Friday. And also on March 24th, there'll be a briefing on the current situation in Rohingya with Cheryl Hardcastle and Sven Spengelman. Rachel Harder. What did I say?
Rachel Harder.
Oh, sorry. That was the member of the previous committee. Rachel Harder and Sven Spengelman, who visited the region there. So thank you very much, and meeting is adjourned.